Three sinister and spine-chilling haunted tales revealed for an unforgettable cold October night. The air in Maplewood hung heavy with the scent of dying leaves and something more sinister. It was October, when shadows danced in the corners of the streets and every creak of the old houses whispered secrets from a past best left alone. As the Halloween season approached, Sarah felt the weight of her responsibilities crushing her like the autumn frost pressing down on the last blooms of summer. The diner glowed like a beacon in the encroaching darkness, but inside, the familiar bustle shifted to hushed whispers layered with dread and suspicion. Rumors fluttered around the diner like fallen leaves. Was that a flicker of eyes watching from beyond the first house on Maple Street? What was it about the elderly woman who always sat alone in the back booth with her crooked fingers and haunting smile? Muffled conversations filled the space. The Maplewood Watcher, they said, an elusive specter promising a night of horror come Halloween. The fear was palpable, coursing through Sarah like the bitter coffee she served. Each message that appeared on her phone cryptic, foreboding riddles only deepened the unease. Was someone playing a dangerous game with her? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she closed up the diner one late night, shadows loomed larger. The familiar route home twisted and forked in her mind, the flickering streetlights throwing eerie shapes across the pavement. Anxiety gnawed at her as she called out for Ethan, her heart pounding with dread. The kind smile of her neighbor, Mrs. Klein, who usually offered cookies for her children, suddenly felt like a shroud over something foul lurking behind her kindness. The night wrapped around Sarah like a dark cloak, thickening each moment with fear. Was she being watched? Was dread the game of Maplewood? Every rustle of leaves made her jump. She could hear the silence, dense and heavy, bearing down with the weight of 1,000 secrets. The warmth of home, her children's laughter, felt miles away. Minutes crawled by as she twisted and turned through the familiar streets, each shadow now a threat, each creak of a fence a two-edged sword. When she spotted Ethan's bike lying abandoned in the yard, panic exploded inside her. "Ethan!" She screamed, but the only reply was the cold wind wrapping itself around her, mocking her frantic voice. Trust had crumbled in her heart, as she suddenly perceived the very specters of her community as potential threats. Her legs propelled her forward, driven by a primal instinct to protect what was hers, but right now every face was a mask, a hidden motive. It was then, at the edge of Mrs. Klein's porch, she felt it a chill deeper than the autumn air, that sense of eyes upon her, pressing down from the shadows. There was no escape from the unmooring reality of the night. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, she turned to confront her neighbor, her breath hitched in her throat. A confrontation was brewing, and time raced against her. Would she save Ethan, or would the Watcher uncover truths more gruesome than she was prepared to bear? The porch creaked under Sarah's weight as she steadied herself to face Mrs. Klein. The darkness felt alive, swelling around her, and she fought the urge to retreat. "Where is he?" she demanded, her voice trembling but unyielding. Mrs. Klein's smile widened, but something dark flickered in her eyes, a glint that sent another wave of fear washing over Sarah. "He's just playing a little game, dear." Mrs. Klein's voice was syrupy sweet, coating the air like fog. "Children love games, don't they? Especially when they're seeking a little thrill." Sarah's heart pounded louder. "This isn't funny. You need to help me find him." She dared to take a step closer, peering into the shadowy depths of the porch. Everything was dim and twisted in the haze of night. "Oh, but he loves hiding," Mrs. Klein replied, tilting her head, the movement almost too exaggerated. "The thrill of being found, it's so exhilarating for both parties." Her words seemed to swirl in the air, heavy and laden. For a moment, Sarah considered that Mrs. Klein might have something to do with Ethan's disappearance. The memories of friendly visits melted away, replaced by a sickening realization that something darker lingered beneath the surface of that crochet-covered facade. Suddenly, an echoing thunk shattered the night, drawing Sarah's gaze to the darkened backyard. Fear clawed at her throat, and she turned instinctively toward the sound. "Ethan!" she called again, desperation lacing her tone. Maybe Mrs. Klein's voice followed, soft and teasing. Maybe he's found something he shouldn't have. The implications prickled along Sarah's spine. Something else was out there, something that had swallowed her son. Without a second thought, she tore from the porch and darted to the backyard, guided by every motherly instinct to find and shield her son. The grass was cold beneath her feet, each step a reminder of the dread pulsing at her temples. She squeezed through the wooden slats of the fence, eyes scanning every shadow. The distant rustle of leaves frayed her focus. Every creak was amplified, ensnaring her senses. "Ethan!" she shouted, her voice nearly lost to the night. Her heart galloped as she identified the movement under the pale light of the moon. Just beyond the old oak tree, she sensed it, a shape crouched low, almost animalistic. Was it him? Her breath hitched in anticipation. No, it couldn't be. As she approached cautiously, the figure shot upright, revealing not Ethan's face but something more chilling, a mask of carved wood, an expression caught in a manic smirk. The figures of children, shadows cast in the baying moonlight, circled around him, their eyes glinting with a familiar fear. They were not there to play, they were witnesses, trapped in a moment caught between reality and a nightmare. "Mom," came Ethan's quivering voice, fragile as glass. She turned to see him trapped behind them, fear glistening in his eyes as he reached through the crowd of smiling, lifeless bodies. "Help!" Adrenaline surged. She lunged but was met with an invisible barrier. The laughter of children echoed around her, warped and sinister, a cacophony in the stillness that cracked her sanity wide open. Then, a whisper threaded through the air. "You're too late." It was Mrs. Klein's voice, mocking and chilling, drifting over the scene. Heart sinking, Sarah realized the truth: this was no game. Maplewood was a cage, and the Watcher was just beginning. Would she be able to break the spell, or would she find herself lost in their web of horror forever? Ethan's voice, tinged with fear, sliced through the laughter. Sarah's heart pressed painfully against her ribs as she pounded against the invisible wall and cried out, "Get away from him!" The children, nothing more than hollow shells with painted smiles, closed in, their faces twisted in perfect stillness. Something deep in Sarah twisted, a primal fear that clawed at her throat. She had to act fast. Steeling herself, she turned to the mass of watching figures, the moonlight casting sharp shadows that seemed to dance with life. "Please, move aside," she shouted, trying to project authority. But they remained unwavering, an eerie barrier between her and Ethan. "Mom!" Ethan's voice cracked, and the sight of him, trembling and trying to push through the crowd, nearly shattered her resolve. Panic coursed through her veins, making her want to scream, yet she couldn't let terror paralyze her. The shadows lifted momentarily, allowing her a glimpse of her son. His face was pale, drawn, and lined with confusion. She fought against the looming darkness surrounding him, willing strength into her limbs. Clenching her fists, she'd have to break through. She had to move. As if reacting to her fury, the crowd surged forward, encroaching on Ethan's space. Laughter echoed, amplified and cruel, echoing in a cadence she had never heard before. It was a harmony of pure malice, drowning her resolve. Desperately, she took a step back, steadying her breath. "Ethan, listen to me." Her voice rang out, sharper, more defined against the darkness. "Close your eyes. Just close them and run. You can reach me." The insidious laughter faltered for a brief second, glimmering uncertainty spreading across the children's faces. As if driven by instinct, Ethan squeezed his eyes shut, his face contorting as if he could feel the rasp of dread grazing his skin. Keep your eyes closed. Don't look at them. She shrieked, her heart aching at how small his silhouette appeared against the crushing shadows. To her shock, the mass of children paused. Their wooden expressions flickered like dying candle flames. But even that flicker was enough to strengthen Sarah's resolve. She pushed forward again, her palms flat against the wall that imprisoned her son. The laughter morphed into something more sinister, a growl, low and rumbling. A shiver skittered down her spine, the sound menacing. Mrs. Klein's mocking voice floated through the dissonance, like a conductor commanding a dark orchestra. You can't protect him from the Watcher, dear. It's far too late. He's already chosen. The words smothered Sarah, they filled her lungs with dread. Chosen? What did that mean? As the shapes drew nearer, something gnawed at her mind. Fear and fury collided within her. She couldn't lose her son. Not like this. Not to a game she never agreed to play. Summoning her last vestiges of courage, she screamed, "Ethan! Run!" He opened his eyes, and in that heart-stopping moment, the world collapsed into chaos. He bolted forward, pushing through the barrier of children, but the ground trembled, and darkness pooled like ink. Shadows lunged, poised to snatch him back. The air grew thick, ripe with the taste of panic. "Mom!" His voice echoed in her ears, the sound distorted. The moment stretched, a fragile thread between safety and doom, then all at once, silence fell. All laughter ceased. The motion stilled. The stillness felt wrong, venomous, a silence pregnant with foreboding. Feeling exposed as her heart raced with dread, Sarah glanced around. The children seemed to bow their heads, relinquishing the space, but the emptiness that surrounded her felt more pungent, more insidious. Then she saw it, a figure materializing by the edge of the tree line, dark and looming, cloaked in shadows as thick as the night itself. The Watcher. Her breath caught deep in her throat as dread settled into her bones. This was the moment of truth. Escape seemed like a cruel memory waiting to fade. "Your turn, Sarah." The voice resonated like thunder, heavy and ominous. With trembling knees, Sarah realized, she was being watched. The game had only just begun. And as that darkness moved closer, she couldn't shake the question echoing in her mind. How do you escape when the shadow knows your name? The Watcher stepped closer, the shadows swirling around it like smoke. Sarah's heart raced, each beat echoing in her ears like a warning drum. The moonlight barely touched its form, but Sarah could feel its presence coil around her, wrapping her in an icy embrace. Fear distorted her vision, making the surrounding world blur. Nothing felt real anymore. "Ethan!" She shouted, but the name barely escaped her lips, choked by dread. She turned, desperate to spot her son, but the children had changed positions. No longer just hollow faces, they now had twisted grins, eyes shining with a sick gleam of delight. Mom. Ethan's voice was a ghost, muffled as if the shadows were swallowing it whole. "Stay close to me." Sarah screamed again, strength pouring into her voice despite the suffocating fear. But could he hear her? Panic surged as she realized how uncertain everything was. A tightness gripped her chest, making it painful to breathe. The Watcher's laughter pierced the silence, a deep, resonating sound that echoed through the trees. A mother's love so naive, so blind. It took another step, its form shifting closer to her, revealing glowing eyes that darted like lightning. Suddenly, Sarah felt the ground beneath her shift, as if the earth itself were alive. A grotesque wave of darkness surged forward, a silent tide rising to drag her under. Time twisted, each moment stretched unnaturally as shadows crept across the grass, bending the reality around her. A scream caught in her throat. Realization dawned. She had to break the cycle, to sever whatever bond had drawn them into this nightmare. "Ethan!" She cried once more, focusing on her son, who stood frozen amidst the throng. Dark figures pressed in around him, their mouths stretched in disturbingly wide smiles. "Run!" Sarah's voice broke, raw with urgency. "Run now!" With that command, Ethan's eyes widened in fear. He didn't hesitate. He turned and sprinted, darting through the strange assembly, just as they reached for him. Hope flared in Sarah's heart for a heartbeat, but then came the weight of despair. He was making it mattered not if he could see, so long as he listened. But what if they got him? The thought screamed in her head as she surged through the crowd, pushing past the children who were almost weightless, their grasp unable to truly hold her back. Still, everything felt like a cruel trick, a cruel game orchestrated by the Watcher. The laughter returned, swarming like a hive. You can't save him, Sarah. He's already becoming like us. The words wrapped around her, whispering doubts in her ear. Visions of her son lost to this darkness clawed at her mind in her desperate bid to reach Ethan, she stumbled, nearly falling. The darkness thickened, and for a moment, it felt like an eternity. But in that chaos, one flicker of hope emerged as she caught sight of Ethan, a mere boy against the consuming void. Their eyes locked for an agonizing moment, and she saw it the spark of determination. With renewed vigor, he pressed forward, pushing past the swirling figures, but the darkness surged again, stretching out spectral hands to grasp him. No! Sarah yelled, pivoting, feeling the raw essence of her spirit shake the ground. She raised her arms, channeling everything she had into a barrier, a wall of love and ferocity. The shadows recoiled for just a split second, hesitating, but was her power enough? The Watcher loomed behind her, a deep rumble of amusement vibrating through the air. It's only a matter of time. He already belongs to the dark. As shadows writhed with new hunger, darkness coiling around Ethan's feet, Sarah felt reality slip. The air grew thick, the temperature plummeting. Time twisted, slipping through her grasp. She could either let the darkness consume her son or confront the menace head-on. Her heart pounded, filled with desperation and resolve. Turning to face the Watcher, she found her voice one more time. You don't own him. I will take him back. In that moment, she unleashed a cry, a mix of fury and love that struck like lightning through the shadows. Darkness split, light exploding forth in a wave. And then silence returned, but the space around her began to pulsate, the shadows pulling back as if gathering strength for a counterattack. What happens next? She wondered, as she locked eyes with Ethan, both uncertain of what the darkness would do in response. They stood on the precipice of a horrific revelation, knowing that salvation might just be a heartbeat away or an eternity of despair. Cold air flooded Sarah's lungs as the silence enveloped them. She could still feel the Russian roulette of shadows hovering around them, waiting for the slightest misstep. Ethan stood paralyzed, eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears. For the first time, she noticed the way the darkness seemed to curl around him like a choking vine, changing, tightening. "Mom, what was that?" he whispered, his voice barely audible against the stillness. His innocent gaze held terror, a stark contrast to the ominous presence of the Watcher. The edges of reality trembled, and the moon hung higher, almost as if watching, judging. "Ethan, listen to me," she urged, stepping forward with careful determination. "You have to fight it. We need to get out of here. Now." But as she spoke, shadows shifted, hiccuping with discontent. "Your words are empty, Sarah. The boy's soul is entwined in darkness. You cannot save what's already doomed." The Watcher's voice, thick and heavy, dripped with malice, sending a shiver down her spine. Fury ignited within her. She wouldn't ruminate over the enormity of this evil any longer. Instinctively, she lunged toward Ethan, willing all the love she felt to weave around him like an invisible barrier. He blinked, and in that flicker of vulnerability, the world around them shimmered again. "What do you mean doomed?" Ethan's face twisted with uncertainty, a spark of doubt igniting in his soft brown eyes. The Watcher chuckled, sound like wretched thunder rumbling through the trees. "He is already tethered to us, Sarah. You can't fight what is his destiny." The laughter resonated in a horrifying symphony, and shadows reached for them with insidious intent. Ethan gasped as tendrils of darkness encased his ankles, pulling him down. "Mom! Help!" His cry sliced through the thickening air, pure terror lacing his voice. With a guttural scream, Sarah pushed through the growing shadows, reaching for Ethan, her fingers stretching as if they could bridge the unspeakable distance forming between them. "I'm coming." The moment her fingertips brushed against his skin, a jolt of energy surged between them. Familiar love flickered in the air, forcing the shadows to retreat. For just a moment, she saw clarity in Ethan's gaze. "Keep fighting," she urged, her voice thick with emotion, but the darkness responded with a vengeance. It swirled in a furious tempest, tendrils snapping like whips against flesh. The ground trembled beneath them, and Sarah felt dizzy, her senses trapped in a whirlwind of chaos. Ethan clutched his mother's hand, but doubt crept in, invading his resolve. "What if I don't make it, Mom? What if I'm already?" His voice broke, choked by emotion. "No. You are not lost," she shouted, pulling him closer. "Listen to me. You have to want to come back. Want to fight." But the Watcher's laughter echoed again, distorted and maddening. "They always long for comfort. He is weak, just like all of them." The shadows surged forward, pulsing with a life of their own. In a final act of desperation, Sarah closed her eyes, focusing all her strength, summoning all of her love for Ethan, amplifying it to drown out the Watcher's voice. The air thickened as she felt their bond pulsate like a heartbeat in the ground beneath them. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted, collapsing shadows, illuminating the grotesque figures that surrounded them. For a fraction of a second, clarity surged. But before they could blink, a tremendous force, like a tidal wave, crashed back, swallowing the light whole. Chaos ensued. Sarah felt herself pulled back, tumbling through the void, the darkness ripping shrieks from her soul. She reached out for Ethan, now spiraling farther away, the void roaring around him. Fear clawed at her heart as she realized their connection was weakening. "Ethan!" she screamed, a raw desperation masking her words. But as shadows dragged him deeper, a spark in his eyes flickered, and she feared it would be the last she'd ever see. The last strands of their bond quivered, unraveling like thread pulled from cloth. Just as she thought despair had consumed them. Both, she saw it, a glimmer of hope, a fleeting memory of laughter between them, an emblem of their strength. "Believe, fight with me," she chanted, drawing from the very essence of who they were together. But just then, the ground split open with a fractured roar, an abyss yawning wider than she ever imagined. Was this their end? Would they be lost forever to the darkness that had claimed so many before them? "Mom!" Ethan's voice echoed in her heart, but she had no time to ponder. It was time to act. As the abyss twisted wider, swallowing everything, Sarah clutched her son's last flicker of hope tightly, determined not to let go, not yet. But the abyss beckoned her, its darkness promising everything they feared. What if there was no way back? What if the shadows won? And then she felt it, a pulsing heartbeat beneath the earth, and in that very moment, another choice emerged. Would she dive into the dark unknown to fight? Or would she abandon everything to preserve what little light remained? The ground beneath Sarah quaked, the fissure swelled as if the earth itself breathed in agony. Fear gripped her heart, but determination ignited her spirit. "Ethan!" she shrieked, feeling the last of their connection splintering beneath her touch. The void below was a dark maw, consuming every shred of hope. "No!" she shouted defiantly, her voice piercing the surrounding darkness, fighting the grip of despair. The shadows shrieked, anguished and enraged, as if her defiance was an assault on their very existence. She tightened her grip on Ethan's hand, desperation fueling her resolve. "Mom, his voice faltered, trembling. "I don't know if I can hold on." "No." The word was primal, ripped from her gut. "You can. You must, my love." She could feel the darkness pulling him deeper, tendrils curling tighter around his legs. A wave of despair washed over her, but she pushed it down, remembering their laughter, the silly moments, all the love that bound them together. "Remember our song? Our secret?" Ethan's eyes flickered with a spark, just for an instant. "The one about the stars?" "Yes." "Sing it with me." Suddenly, a cacophony erupted around them. Their song was twisted and warped, taken hostage by the shadows. But Sarah could feel Ethan begin to hum, his voice timid at first. She joined in, desperate to drown out the Watcher's malevolent laughter that mingled with their melody, yet the shadows roared, angrily fighting back. "You think you can escape?" His heart wavers. "It's too late, Sarah." The Watcher's words seeped into her mind, a poison meant to suffocate hope, but in that fleeting moment, as their voices soared above the chaos, Sarah felt a shift. The dark tendrils recoiled, momentarily weakened by their harmony. "Keep going," she urged, breathless, feeling the ground tremble beneath them. Ethan's voice grew stronger. "I'm with you, Mom. I don't want to lose you." That declaration shattered the darkness for just a moment. The abyss pulsed, fighting against a light that only they could summon. Shadows writhed, merging and twisting like tortured souls desperate for escape. But the Watcher would not relent. "Your faith is futile. You will be consumed." It echoed around them, a taunting specter filling the night air with dread. With every ounce of strength, Sarah felt her love manifest into something tangible, an almost ethereal glow that washed over them, pushing back against the inky blackness. She took a breath, feeling vibrations beneath her feet. "Ethan. Focus on me, on our love. You are stronger than any darkness." As the bond between them pulsed louder, a crack like thunder erupted from the chasm. The shadows howled, the sound like banshees wailing their despair. "No!" The Watcher howled, desperate, furious, as their song began transforming the darkness into light. In that radiant moment, Sarah's heart swelled, it felt like the laughter of a million stars. But suddenly, a mighty force surged, knocking them apart. "Ethan!" Her scream resonated, slicing through the storm. The ground trembled violently, opening wider, ready to swallow them whole. "I can't hold on!" Ethan cried as the tendrils jerked him back, his frightened eyes reflecting sheer terror. A moment of clarity struck Sarah in the heart. If they were to fight the shadows together, they needed to bridge the rift between them. "Let go!" she shouted, "Trust me." "Mom, no. I can't." "You can. I promise." The darkness writhed, a feral beast loosed upon their resolve. In their final attempt, she drew back, preparing herself, then she felt it, the heartbeat in the earth resonating, stronger now, almost rhythmic. "I'm coming." With a leap of faith, she released her grip, and in that moment, Ethan's terrified gasp echoing in her ears, she plunged into the chasm, the world spun, and darkness swallowed her whole. Would their love light the way back, or had the abyss claimed them forever? As she fell through the void, she braced herself against the unknown, ready to face what waited in the depths. Would she ever reunite with Ethan? Would they find the strength to fight back against the shadows? In the darkness, the answers loomed close, just out of reach. Sarah plunged deeper into the darkness, air swirling thick and heavy around her. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears, each thud more desperate than the last. She felt weightless yet trapped, as if the abyss itself pressed against her, clawing at her mind. "Ethan!" she yelled again, her voice swallowed by the void. Panic blossomed in her chest as she tumbled through shadows, memories flashing before her eyes, every moment shared, laughter echoed, and quiet evenings spent under a starlit sky. Those fractions of joy began to slip away like sand through her fingers, each grain echoing Eden's name. Then, the darkness shifted. From the depths, shadows coiled and twisted, predatory and slick, reaching for her, hungry for the warmth and love they craved. She felt not just the cool air of the deep but an insatiable coldness creeping into her soul. The Watcher's laughter reverberated again, slicing through her thoughts. "You have chosen madness, foolish girl. You will never escape. But Sarah didn't give in. She steeled her resolve, determined to harness the love that had brought her to this point. I will find him, she proclaimed defiantly, feeling the shadows recoil slightly, as if her words held power. I will not let you win. In the darkness, flashes of light began to swirl like fireflies. They danced around her, flickering with ethereal promise, just out of reach. Sarah stretched her hands, reaching for the light. With every ounce of willpower, she called forth the memories of Ethan, his laughter, his smile. Ethan. I'm coming for you. The light surged, and for a fleeting moment, she felt it guiding her through the twisting shadows. But then, the Watcher's voice returned, hissing like a snake. Futile. You are alone. There is no escape. And just like that, the light flickered. The shadows lunged forward, snapping at her heels, grabbing at the edges of her sanity, wrapping around her throat, choking her hope. She gasped, fighting to breathe, her heart racing, the darkness threatening to swallow her whole. Suddenly, Sarah felt a pull strong and reassuring, as if an invisible thread connected her to Ethan. Hold on, Mom. Please. His voice cut through the fog, sparked a flicker of courage that ignited within her. Yes. She screamed, her voice colliding with the dark around her. Together. We'll fight together. She closed her eyes and focused. She envisioned Ethan's face, the warmth of his smile igniting her determination. And in that heartbeat, she felt it, the affectionate bond stretching and pulling at her essence like an umbilical cord entwined in love. The shadows faltered, and in that moment of hesitation, she fought back with every ounce of passion she possessed. A shimmering light burst forth from her heart, an explosion of radiant warmth piercing the darkness. It pushed against the shadows, scattering them like ashes in the wind. For a moment, she could see hints of the world above, a fractured glimpse of the night sky, the stars twinkling as if cheering her on, urging her to keep going. But the resistance of the shadows grew stronger, wrapping around her in ropes of despair. In the dazzling surgery of light, the memories returned in waves. Ethan, their time together, the resilience of their love. It became clear now. They were tethered no matter where they were. The realization was both comforting and terrifying. What if he was losing hope while she fought to reach him? Ethan. She cried, knowing she had to push through the onslaught of darkness. You have to sing. But as the shadows squeezed tighter, smothering her voice, a chilling question gnawed at her mind. Would this spark of love be enough to penetrate the heart of the abyss, or had she stepped too far into the dark? With dread pooling in her gut, Sarah struggled onward, the echoes of their fateful bond whispering to her. Would she find Ethan? Would they escape the grasp of the Watcher, or was there a price to pay that she couldn't fathom? The answer lingered in the darkness, ominous and threatening, waiting for her next move. The shadows warped around Sarah, tightening their grip like a vice. Her breath came in desperate gasps, mixing with the darkness to create a suffocating shroud. Each inhale felt like a battle, each exhale a cry for help swallowed by the nothingness. Mom! Sing! Ethan's voice echoed again, its tone unmistakably clear, yet it sounded distant, as if he were calling from the edge of a dream. In that moment, Sarah felt her heart tremble against the inexorable cold threatening to consume her. How could she sing when her voice was caught in a snare of despair? The light flickered, responding to her hesitation. A cascade of memories enveloped her, warmth spilling like sunlight in the depths of the chill. She clung to them tightly, imagining Ethan's face, his laughter ringing pure and bright amidst the shadows. No more hesitation. She opened her mouth, and a melody unfurled from deep inside her. It was a haunting lullaby, their lullaby, one they had sung together when he was small. Each note was a conduit, carrying her love through the abyss, amplifying the light she summoned. Ethan. I will find you. We are not lost. She sang, her voice trembling but unwavering. For the first time since her plunge into the dark, she felt something shift. Light erupted around her, illuminating her path. The shadows writhed, clinging stubbornly while the warmth expanded quickly like a wildfire through dry grass. The Watcher's laughter morphed into something sharper, sinister. "You think that will save you, foolish girl?" But Sarah ignored the taunts. She closed her eyes again, summoning every ounce of strength from her bond with Ethan. "Together. We are together," she sang, her spirit intertwined with his, blazing brighter than the shadow's encroachment. The coldness receded, replaced by the warmth of love, the shadowy tendrils around her softening before pulling back. For a moment, Sarah felt invincible, fate with the shadows that had once threatened her very essence. She envisioned Ethan, his warm, reassuring smile, and that thought fueled her will, but then, silence. The shadows held their breath, as if waiting, anticipating her next move. A gnawing emptiness blossomed where the music had once flowed. Had she pushed too far? "Sing louder." Ethan's voice pierced through her momentary distraction, a palpable urgency threading through the air. Ripples of the darkness began to tighten again, coiling like serpents, ready to strike. Sarah's eyes flew open. Panic surged in her veins, but she wouldn't yield. Focusing, she let out another note, a powerful cry of hope that reverberated through the darkness. It broke through the oppressive stillness with a solidness that shook the void itself. In response, the darkness quaked. Shadows blistered, swaying as though struggling against an invisible force. In that moment, together they were reborn, their bond carved like a beacon amidst the blackened nothingness, but, as if sensing its imminent defeat, the Watcher let out a chilling howl, reverberating through the abyss like thunder, dislodging Sarah's confidence. "You'll pay for this foolishness. You tread dangerously close to madness." With every ounce of will, she pressed forward, her heart thundering. "Ethan! You're with me." Yet the shadows writhed, and as they coiled, she felt a shift. The weight of despair crushed her hope. Something was building, a malevolence that bore down with a fiery rage. She realized this entity wasn't merely a watcher, it was a predator, ready to consume her every emotion. "Fight, Mom! Fight!" Ethan shouted desperately from his pit of shadows, a plea that sent deadly chills down her spine. Would this moment push her over the edge? What sacrifice awaited them at the end of this insidious path through the dark? And then, as pulses of darkness seemed to merge and loom above her, she hesitated for the barest fraction of time, a harbinger of dread sweeping across her. In that instant, she understood the shadows contained secrets, and the Watcher was not merely an enemy but an insidious guardian of a dark truth. What had Sarah truly unleashed in her desperate bid to reclaim her son? The answer was about to unfold, and dread coiled tightly around her, constricting her every thought. "Ethan," she whispered, a ghost of fear curling around her heart. What awaited them both in the unknown? Would love be enough, or had the abyss already claimed its prize? The shadows swelled, darkening the world around Sarah until it felt as if all hope had slipped through her fingers. The suffocating darkness wrapped tighter, every inch chilling her bones, and the acrid scent of fear filled her lungs. Her heart raced, pounding a desperate rhythm that echoed in the vacuous night. "Mom!" Ethan's voice pierced through the gloom, but it felt even more distant now, as if he were fading away. Panic clawed at her throat. "Please, don't stop." With every ounce of determination she possessed, she pushed the fear aside. The memory of Ethan's laughter coursed through her, brightening the shadows that coiled like serpents around her. They couldn't take him from her. She was going to let the darkness win. "Together. I will always find you." She sang louder, filling the void around her with every note, her voice rising like a beacon cutting through the blackness. The shadows recoiled briefly, as though struck by her fervor, their sniggering taunts faltering, but then something shifted. The shadows surged forward with newfound ferocity, like a raging storm, and for a moment, she wavered. The Watcher's laughter boomed, surrounding her, vibrating through her very soul. "You are nothing, just a flicker. You cannot keep up with the darkness." Sarah clamped her fists tight, squeezing her eyes shut. Memories rose again, piercing her heart. Ethan's first steps, his joyous giggles, the crisp autumn days spent in the park. Those moments nourished her strength, each vivid recollection a thread pulling her back from the second abyss, but the shadows constricted, and with an unsettling hiss, they snaked through her mind, grasping for her memories, twisting them, distorting them. Each painful gasp brought visions of terror, moments where she had failed Ethan in the past, all twisted together in an unholy tapestry. Fear clawed at her sanity, relentlessly whispering that she would never reclaim him now. Ethan, she gasped, struggling against the grief threatening to bind her. The warmth of her song flickered, but he called to her again, "Mom, don't give up. I need you." The urgency in his voice sparked something within her, a flicker of resolve igniting against overwhelming odds. She forced her eyes open, the darkness shattering momentarily as she focused on the sound that was now her lifeline. "I will find you." The shadows crashed against her, forcing her backward and down. It wrapped around her limbs, stifling her thoughts. But there, in the swirling void, she felt the faintest whisper of warmth. "Ethan." "Mom." His voice was clearer now, but filled with sorrow. "You must face it. Remember, the truth is in the darkness." "What truth?" The question echoed in the oppressive silence, beckoning a long-buried wind of dread. But as the darkness coursed through her, she took a deep breath and dove deeper, searching for the hidden illumination. With every note of her song, the shadows trembled. They clawed at her throat, but she fought back, the melody rising stronger, resonating with a fierce determination. The memories flashed like strobe lights, moments of strength, joy, love. And then, she understood. The shadows were reflections, distortions of her own fears. They thrived on her doubts, powerful because she had hidden her struggles from the light. "You will not control me," she screamed, the shadows writhing at the sound. The watcher let out a furious shriek, and the sound pierced her chest, the very air thickening around her. "You cannot break free. You are bound by your own darkness." "I am not bound," she shouted back, and the dark tendrils recoiled, her defiance igniting a spark of light, illuminating the terror around her. The walls of despair closed in, but there was no room for fear, only strength. But even as she pushed forward, a new chilling sensation gripped her. The shadows began to twist, forming shapes that looked all too familiar. Faces emerged, silent screams painted onto the twisted visages. "Mom, be careful." Ethan's voice was frantic now, swallowed by the rising echoes of anguish surrounding her. In that moment, a realization crashed through the haze of her determination. They had once been innocent memories, now turned grotesque. Were they the remnants of those who had entered this realm before her, the trapped souls of despair? "Who are you?" Sarah whispered, her heart racing. The shadows surged again, mouths opening in silent wails. She felt her resolve shaking as their sorrow clawed at her, pulling her back. "Ethan! Stay with me!" she cried, but as they crowded closer, darkness closing in like a wave, she could feel her strength waning. Was the watcher right? Had she come too far? Just as despair threatened to pull her under, she spotted one familiar face amid the disfiguration. Hooded eyes barely visible, filled with a hopeless longing. "Help us, free us," it whispered, and with that, a fever pitch of horror gripped her heart. What had she unlocked in her bid to save her son? The truth loomed closer, sharper than any blade. Each pulse of shadow thrummed with urgency as they surrounded her, and grasping for hope, she took a step toward the darkness once more, knowing she couldn't turn back now. "What do you want from me?" she gasped, desperation mingling with rage, and in the fading light, a single voice, echoing through the abyss, sent shivers down her spine. "The truth can set you free, but only if you dare to embrace it." With that, silence echoed through the void, and all at once, uncertainty trembled in the air. Would she discover the darkness within, or was she already too late? Sarah felt the weight of her own fears crashing around her. The shadows twisted, seemingly alive with their own hunger. She closed her eyes, trying to grasp the thread of connection that linked her to Ethan. His voice echoed in her mind, strong, desperate, urging her not to give in. Fight, Mom. Face it. Determined, she opened her eyes, seeing the dark figures wailing for recognition, shadows of lost souls entangled in despair. They weren't just figments of the abyss, they were reflections of her own regrets. You're just like me, she spoke softly, feeling the tremble beneath her feet. You're trapped by your fears. Their moans stilled, momentarily silent as her words resonated through the darkness. Grasping at this fragile connection, she pressed on, I've been afraid all my life to face what I had buried deep inside. But I can't let you keep my son. I will break this cycle. With renewed determination, Sarah stretched her arms wide, drawing on every ounce of strength she had. I will embrace my pain, my failures. I will not allow it to control me. Her voice rippled through the dark, and the shadows recoiled, writhing as though struggling against an unseen force. The truth within her began to illuminate the space around her, memories of heartbreak, moments she had failed to protect Ethan, fights she hadn't fought hard enough. They coalesced into a radiant light, dazzling and vibrant against the encroaching dark. What is happening? The Watcher's voice thundered, its tone shifting from mocking to outright terror. You think you can unravel the darkness? I can, and I will. Sarah shouted, unleashing the melody that had been growing inside her. It was a powerful song, a dirge mixed with hope, a celebration of every fragment of love she had for Ethan. And in the shadowy void, as she sang, the tendrils that had held her began to dissolve, transform, breaking apart like brittle leaves in autumn. Ethan's voice joined hers, not a mere whisper but a resounding echo of courage. Mom. I believe in you. With the power of their bond surging through her, the darkness began to retreat, swirling away from the light surrounding her. Sarah felt the pressure lessen, the shadows scrambling, their shrieks mingling with dismay. Her memories shone like bright lanterns, illuminating the path to Ethan more and more. The figures around her trembled, torn between despair and light. Embrace your truth, and the shadows will fall, one of the expressions murmured, and with that, Sarah grasped the idea with shaking hands. I will not be afraid anymore. You can't take him. She cried. With a fierce cry, she reached into the abyss. Ethan. I'm coming for you. Crashing through the dark, she propelled herself forward and felt a surge of energy pull her toward her son. Shadows condensed into a vortex, swirling, trying to evade her grasp, but they were no match for the love propelling her forward. With every step, she felt the ground shift beneath her as if responding to her claim. The darkness had whispered lies, twisted her truths, but now it was the bright essence of their shared love that cut cleanly through the night. She surged into the heart of the shadows, her heart pounding with each beat echoing in synchronization with Ethan. Suddenly, she broke through. The density around her thinned, and there he was. Ethan stood at the precipice of darkness, eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. He was free to move, yet he was still entangled by the threads of shadow gripping his feet. Mom! He exclaimed, relief flooding his expression as their eyes locked. Together! She cried, arms outstretched as she weaved through the darkness, gathering every ounce of light she had, every joyous moment, every heartache, every memory glowing fiercely. Don't let go. Trust me. Sarah shouted, and Ethan nodded, his faith in her unshaken. They reached for each other, fingers grasping as shadows writhed around them, clawing one last time. We're stronger together. Sarah declared, a brilliant light erupting from their outstretched hands, illuminating the plane of existence they fought so hard to escape. With a blinding flash, the darkness shrieked, the shadows exploding around them, restoring a breathless silence. It was done. They had defeated the abyss. Suddenly, reality shifted. They stood on grass beneath a beautiful night sky, stars twinkling like diamonds. A gentle breeze kissed their cheeks, and the once oppressive darkness had evaporated. Mom! We did it! Ethan laughed, and the sound was pure magic, echoing brightly in the tranquil air. Sarah pulled him to her, holding him tightly as relief flooded through her. "I wasn't going to lose you. Never again." As joy unraveled between them, she felt the lingering warmth of the shadows behind them, a constant reminder of the struggle. But now there was hope, a new path ahead. "Let us go home," Ethan whispered, and they walked down the moonlit path together, hand in hand. The terror of Maplewood faded behind them, replaced with the comforting embrace of new beginnings, bound by love and resilience, but as they turned the corner, a shiver raced down Sarah's spine. There, a familiar figure lingered in the shadows just outside the glow. Mrs. Klein, her eyes glinting with a knowing smile. "Remember, dear, the night always brings secrets." In that heartbeat, a realization settled in. This was just the beginning. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. So, what are you waiting for? You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button and help us feed the algorithm. Every click makes a difference. Flood the comments with your thoughts and theories about this crazy ending. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.